So if you lived in America in the 1950s when Miller wrote this, you were scared that Russia, again, it's called Soviet Union then, that they were going to fire nuclear missiles and nuclear weapons over on America. And the people in Russia were afraid of the same thing. So they were both competing for power. So America represented democracy, seemingly, capitalism at least, and then the Soviet Union represented communism. And they were both fighting for ideological supremacy. That's a phrase you want to put down. So the Cold War was about America and the Soviet Union fighting for ideological supremacy. So whose way of living is better? That's what that means. The ideology is the way you think, the values that you have. So you can either have communist values or you can have those democratic values. Is that making sense? So under Cold War, you want to know that that was a fight for ideological supremacy. So I put that there as a tension between capitalist West and communist East. So you know about the end of the Second World War, we've gone through that. There was dropping of atomic bombs, and then that's why everyone's now panicking, because they're like, wow, the whole world could be destroyed by these bombs if we allow this Cold War. Good, so there's no actual fighting, at least on a mass scale, but there are what's called proxy wars. So the Cold War means it's a cold, non-physical, non-combative war, but it's a war based on fear. So if you just understand that the Cold War was this extended type of war where there wasn't really a big war between America and the Soviet Union, but what there was there was a lot of fear tactics as they both tried to build a lot of weapons and threaten each other with nuclear destruction. So just understand that the Cold War was about a mutual fear of nuclear destruction. Now, the key word there is fear, because remember, the Crucible is all about fear, isn't it? You don't want to be that communist. You don't want to be that communist because everyone is so tense in this period in the 1950s that to be called a communist, you really are going to be alienated from society. So you can see clearly how in America, the government can easily take advantage of this fear that everyone's under, because everyone is obviously going to be dependent. What are people going to be dependent on? If you're really scared, who are you going to rely on more? So the government will make you scared so that you need them more. Do you see? So here's a phrase for that. The government there is manufacturing. They're like making it up. They're manufacturing their own legitimacy. So they're making themselves more legitimate because they're saying, hey, we're going to make you scared. And because you're scared, you're going to think that you need us more because we're the only ones who can help you. Because people will naturally look for guidance and rescue. A really weird, it just came to mind, a really weird version of this on an individual level. Has anyone heard of Stockholm Syndrome? Right? It's kind of similar, right? Because Stockholm Syndrome is something when the captor, so someone, imagine, God forbid, someone is basically kidnapped, right? And then you are made hostage and say you're stuck in someone's basement or whatever for years. There's this syndrome where they can basically fall in love with the person who kidnapped them, right? They've shown this psychologically. So and why am I bringing up that? Because it's an example of how when someone's in desperate need, even the person who was persecuting them, who kidnapped them, is the person that they'll look for guidance. So they fall in love with them because that's in our human nature to look for rescue, even if you're being rescued from that same person. It's like the government is making you scared, and then because they're the ones making you scared, you will need them more. That's why they're manufacturing their own legitimacy. So that's in human nature. That's why I point out that psychological example, right? So scary stuff. So we're obviously vulnerable to that.